rather than a dysfunction in the practice. So it's not really a barrier to our inner work, but something that needs to be recognized as a valid experience. Because usually, we think, oh, I feel very numb and I have to kind of bang through that numbness in order to do the practice. But just simply, being aware of numbness is already practicing. Because the numbing reaction, we can become aware of is something which stems from a pre-existing experience. It's a certain trauma reaction which got triggered through an event in present time, and then it takes us back to an earlier way of responding, which is now maybe something we can slowly let go of through awareness. Because once the numbness was needed, because it was our only way to respond to overwhelm when we were like small children, and when we could not afford, to be excluded from the family because we needed it to survive. But now we are no longer small children. We can actually start becoming aware of those very early patterns. And, through awareness, through practicing, and through the support of the Sangha, or through the support of a group or a friend or a teacher, we can, stay conscious as long as we can. And through that, being conscious, being aware of how numbing works, we slowly but surely free our energy up into more capacity for being with things as they are. And so this ability, to turn off into numbing, to turn off sensing and feeling, is actually a real capacity which should not be understood as a dysfunction. And then once we are kind of approaching the numbing in this way, as a function rather than it takes on a complete different life, and there's much more capacity, to have a respectful relationship to it. And slowly, but surely beginning to digest this backlog of traumatic energy and make it available for growth. And, it's just the first noble truth, like any other emotional state, greed and anger and numbing, they all are different emotional states, different ways, how we relate to our experience. And they all need to be understood. I shared a few times already, my first teacher, one of teacher, Ajahn Sumedho, he always spoke about, the first noble truth needs to be understood. And he was speaking in the terms of to stand under it, to really draw close to it, to not kind of keep it at arm's length, but to really being willing to draw close and have an intimate relationship with that patterning of numbing, to say, oh, now something happened and my whole system has been numbing. And then, just take an interest in that. And as soon as we have this full relationship with the numbing process, it starts to lose its power over us. And we are just including the numbing into the circle of care, rather than, standing outside of it and trying to make it go away. So not overriding its awkwardness or its intensity, its discomfort, just making it part of the practice and respecting its intelligence, because there was a time when nothing else was available to deal with overwhelm. And that was, what we could do. This was an evolutionary capacity, which is part and parcel of, being a human being. And down and attuning to that experience. That's what we need to do. And I've a few times shared, that quote by Bioaccumulate, times are urgent, let us slow down. Or times are urgent, we need to slow down. Because if we just keep reacting, in the same way like we have been for hundreds of years, we just repeat the same thing all over again. And there won't be any sustainable changes. And that's what we are all looking for. We need to sustainably change the way how we live. And that can only come from a new narrative we are. And to, for example, including emotional responses as an intelligent response rather than a bother, we need to get rid of, or we need to try to not have, that's gonna be weakening us because it's not real, So taking an interest and turn towards our inner experience, that's where it all starts. And, knowing that our systems have a negativity bias built in, as an evolutionary protection against basically extinction, It was and it said that for every kind of positive experience, for any negative experience, to be balanced out, we need 7 positive ones. So it's pretty tough, once we understand that, negative experiences, they are quite tenacious, because in a way, this negativity bias protects us from, kind of expiring, basically. So it's really important to know that this is not our mistake. This is not because we are not capable of living good lives. It's just like part and parcel of our evolutionary equipment, which we need to learn to handle better. At this time where we are, in very difficult situation, as we are noticing that the way we are living on the planet is not sustainable. And I think this negativity bias is one of the reasons, where we have going so deep into consumption, because we once thought, when we were less evolved, we thought that consumption can protect us from discomfort. So I have to just close that a little bit. And we have now found out that actually consumption is creating more discomfort in terms of, destroying important life-sustaining capacities of the planet, such as, having water to drink and having sustainable temperature to live and to grow food, and all of those very basic things are in danger now because we have not been mature enough, to see things in a big picture, and we have been, zoning in just like wanting more comfort for as many people as possible, and the definition of comfort was very limited. So in order, to grow out of that, we need to untangle this web of assumptions we have been projecting. And it's not because we are bad, it's just, that's what immature species does based on ignorance. And as soon as we are ready, to do something about that ignorance, we can start, because we have many teachings out there. And the Buddha's teaching is one, which is particularly pragmatic because it has, the meditations teachings, which are very, very clear. And the Buddha's teaching is a set of tools, not a set of beliefs, and that's why it's, I think, very well received in the world, because it doesn't require to believe anything. It just requires to, put disbelief to one side and just experiment, pick up some of the tools and try it out for yourself and see if it works or if it doesn't. And, according to my experience, it does work, that it does, increasingly free us of mistaken identities. It's like, you know, taking off a tight shoe. Maybe you've got a pair of new shoes and you go to town, you know, for a few hours, and then you can't wait to get back home. Take off those shoes, you know, and then feeling, So this kind of a tight conceptual identities, you know, which we have been living with, we can just take it off, you know, if it's no longer serving us, and the whole planet reflects it back in no uncertain terms, you know, that it doesn't serve us. It maybe serves, you know, some of the old systems, like, you know, the capitalist industrial complex. They still, you know, are trying to squeeze out the last few you know, dollars out of the biosphere, but it's written all over the wall, you know, it's a dying system. I mean, maybe we can make it, you know, stumble along a few more years, but it's not going to be coming back to strength again ever. Because it has, you know, eaten itself up in a way. And you know, in order to be able to discern that those connections, we need to really put an effort into cultivating our minds and grounding ourselves. You know, both of those are very, very important. Sensitizing the mind so that the mind is more capable of seeing nuance and seeing the big picture. And on the other hand, you know, grounding ourselves in our bodies and in the fact, you know, that we and the planet are one process, and tuning into this much vaster intelligence which the planet is already displaying, you know, since it has come into being over 4 billion years ago. It has displayed an incredible intelligence as it was self-regulating. And if you think, you know, how it all started, it was like a huge cloud of stardust, and now, I mean, we have these wonderful trees out there, we have computers so we can connect with each other, even, you know, some of us are so far away, like in Europe. So, you know, this intelligence has done pretty well, and we couldn't have done it any better, I'm sure. So why don't we just, you know, tune in with that intelligence rather than trying to figure it out ourselves? I think that seems to be the next evolutionary step, you know, that respect and that turning back to where we really come from, and becoming team players rather than trying to be the masters of this, which we have really pretty ridiculously, you know, kind of failed. Even we had this dream, and I think it's good to follow dreams, but then when you see that it's not going anywhere, you know, you have to just stop and go back and start all over again. And I think that's what is our lot at this point, you know, as we are noticing we can't keep on pushing forward in these old ways. We need to drop deeper. And all of those cracks, you know, which are opening up, all of those signposts, you know, which are showing us that we can't no longer press forward in that same way, they help us to actually look in the right direction. And I think the right direction is to be able to attune more deeply with this intelligence, you know, which is always already here, and to cultivate our minds so that we can really resonate deeply and drop some of this extra luggage, you know, of conditioning, which keeps us closed, you know, to those kinds of information which are important to open up to at this point in history. You know, to really open up to what the earth has to tell us. Because it's not only about, you know, everything what's going wrong. It's not only all about doomsday and extinction, but there's also a whispering there, which tells us what is the right thing to do, how to respond. And because our bodies and the body of the earth are one and the same process, we can directly connect through listening, with our whole bodies, so to say, which sounds a little bit funny, but that's what it is, listening and seeing in a different way with our whole bodies, because our bodies are our connection to the earth. And to develop this capacity, that's what I think I try to encourage us all together on those Wednesdays. And that's also what I try to do, in my practice, to just step out of the thinking mind and sense with my whole body into this deep interdependence with everything around me. And then, see what emerges out of that, not by thinking about it, but by rather opening myself to whatever wants to come through. And one way how we can explain that process in terms of the early Buddhist teaching is, cultivating what's called the 7 factors of awakening. And I have chosen that today because I also teach it here at Spirit Rock during this retreat. So the 7 factors of awakening are 7 qualities of the mind, which we always already have, but we can train them and make them more powerful. So we have an increasing sensitivity to connect with the way things really are, rather than staying, caught up in the mind and projecting stories and a web of assumption onto experience. And I was planning to lead us today in a guided meditation on those 7 factors of awakening, or in the Pali language, they're called the 7 Bojjhanga. So, please, find a posture for about 35 minutes. And listening, with our full bodies and our minds, both of those. We could imagine the body as an organ of listening, or seeing, whatever works better for you, or both. And for that you don't have to work hard. Just allow what is being said, orient the body and the mind, because the body and the mind, they respond naturally without us having to push or pull. And also noticing what you're bringing to this meeting today. Making a screenshot of how the body feels right now. No words needed, just a direct sensing. Then the emotions, the heart, and the mind. And we are together here, as a group. Creating like a vessel together, to receive a deeper relationship with biosphere, as our guide at this time in history. and also, the whole lineage of our, in terms of the Buddha's teaching, which has been handed down to us, since over 2,500 years, and how we can bring both of those teachings together. Just as the Buddha, is on record for having touched the earth in the night of his awakening in Bodh Gaya under the Bodhi tree, he has been touching the earth and asking the earth to be his witness that he has done his work. And we are in the process of doing our work. We are not done yet. But we also, just like the Buddha, we need to bring together our work here as human beings and parts of the planet, and the work of finding the appropriate way to relate to samsara, and through this appropriate relating, more and more letting that go. So it's a combination of both the conventional lives we lead on the planet, and then the supermundane, transcending at the same time, bringing both of those approaches together. And we can't cut any corners here. So then you're just simply also reminding yourselves, why are you here? What's your motivation? And pointing the mind to the present moment in a receptive, open way. And that's already the first of the 7 factors of awakening, sati, or mindfulness awareness. The key quality for getting started. At the same time, that's the quality which is getting more and more empowered in combination with the other 6 factors. Like a spiral which is going deeper and deeper into reality. Just, being aware of the body, sitting and breathing in and breathing out. And taking a real interest in our experience, that is curiosity. That is the 2nd factor of awakening, which is in the Pali language Dhamma Vichaya. For example, noticing the beginning, middle, and the end of each breath. It's not rocket science. To pay attention to those features, of our experience we usually don't pay attention to, because we are usually glued on content and don't look at structure. So this teaching, guides us to be more able to discern structure and not get lost in content. Because that's where the liberating power of the Dharma is found, in recognizing the repetitive structures. Not in, kind of, getting lost in philosophizing or teasing out, stories. That is endless. So we already have two of the factors: conscious, sati, mindfulness, and Dhammavichaya. And that can be on a very rudimentary level, like if we want to open a door, we need to have an interest to open the door. And then we go there and take out the key, put in the keyhole. That's one application of the 7 factors. But then, that capacity can be refined and made more powerful as we train ourselves. In order to stay with the meditation object, to stay with what we want to do, there also needs to be energy. That's the 3rd factor, virya. So mindfulness, curiosity and interest, and energy. Meaning, always coming back again and again to the chosen object. Mind tends to wander off according to its conditioning. And then again and again, as we notice that, we just simply bring it back to the task, which is we are now, being aware of the body breathing. And the wandering off is not a problem. That's just a symptom of a mind, which is conditioned. And then, as we are bringing the mind back over and over again, we are slowly, letting go of tension. The process gets a bit more smooth. And that brings us to the 4th factor of awakening, which is piti. It's maybe a subtle, very subtle kind of joy or contentment, which starts to become apparent if we notice it. And it's just quite a bit different than how it was just a few minutes ago, when we were still, at the beginning of the meditation. There's a certain smoothness which becomes palpable through the continuous, bringing the mind back, bringing the mind back. You know, if you don't feel any kind of smoothness or subtle joy or contentment, you can just maybe bring up, you know, the fact that you're practicing, that you are going in the right direction with this. It can help to bring up a sense of contentment. And as we are, you know, stay with the body breathing, the mind lets go and gets a bit more calm without, you know, getting involved with its many stories. And that's the fifth factor of awakening, calming or passaddhi. It's quite a natural process, you know, as soon as we arrive at the contentment, at the subtle joy, then that transforms into calm. There's no more input needed from us. Just need to stay centered. And, you know, keep the posture energized, not getting, you know, slouching or losing energy and falling asleep. You know, and as the fragmentation in the mind disappears more and more, like a kind of a healing coming together naturally occurs, and we call it samadhi. The stable, still, collected mind, which is focused, and it doesn't need to be a narrow focus. So the word concentration is sometimes used, which is a bit misguiding, I think, because it's not about keeping things out, but it's about being able to embrace everything from a sense of stability and composure. That's the sixth factor of awakening. And being, you know, being really stable but connected, not checking out. It's not about shutting down. It's about opening from a place of stability and grounding. But all of those factors, you know, they're all present. Sati, mindfulness, awareness, Dhammavichaya, curiosity, interest, virya, energy, piti, subtle joy, contentment, passaddhi, calm, samadhi, stability. And then the last one is upekkha, connected yet spacious and balanced. And, you know, in the early teachings, the definition of that is dwelling free from desire and discontent. You know, just really being with what is. And if there is some desire or discontent, including that also inside of the circle of awareness. And Upeka equanimity is sometimes also translated as having a sense of perspective on our experience, like a bird's eye view. And once they all present, then in particular the Upeka, the sense of perspective, again strengthens the capacity for mindfulness awareness. And then, we go into a next round of those 7 factors. And in that manner, we are going deeper and deeper into reality in a very intimate way, using the whole body and mind to connect. Because these bodies are also part of here on this planet. And now, as we are reaching the limits of the biosphere as a global civilization, this intelligence wants us to wake up to this fact, as a next evolutionary step. And it's not something, we have to work for super hard. It's more like staying connected with what wants to emerge, showing an interest, being willing to put in some energy, staying with it, dealing with the discomfort of the uncertainty and whatever other traumatic materials get squeezed out, as we are pushing around against this evolutionary threshold. It's challenging, yes, but it's not something, which we are doing alone. We are part of this unfolding which is whatever we want to call it, in some religions it's called God, in others it's, in our teaching it's called Dharma or Dhamma. It is already happening. The point is just, are we gonna go with it? Are we gonna go tune, resonate, align ourselves with it? Or are we trying to hold on and stay in the past because we don't want to change? That's the choice we have. Are we going to take the ride, or are we going to try desperately to hold on the banks of extreme? Or are we just going to paddle, to the middle of the river and go? And that's, what the 7 factors of awakening providing us with, to come back to the middle of the river and allow ourselves to be carried, rather than holding on one bank in terms of aversion, on the other bank in terms of indulgence. We can just come back to the middle and take the ride. This is what this teaching is enabling us to do. And it always needs to be communicated in some way, which makes sense, some kind of a list or some kind of a practice we can follow. And this is one of them. There's many ways to express it differently, but it's all about opening and allowing and not drowning. And the more, we are willing, to digest, metabolize these old traumatic backlogs in our system, the more buoyancy we will have. Because the repetition compulsion of the old traumatic material, as we can see so well now in the Middle East, it's just always the same old thing, until we stop and say, okay, we're gonna look at this. We're not gonna stay on the surface and hack away at the symptoms. We're gonna look at the root of this. Because everything else is just like not really able to bring any lasting benefit for anybody. And in order to see that, we need the bird's eye view. We need to have a sense of perspective. Otherwise, it escapes us so easily. And this is, where the practice comes in, not as a luxury, but as a necessary part of bringing about benefit. Real compassion needs to be paired with wisdom. Otherwise, it's just going to be feel better for a moment, and then it's back to the old thing. This is, the evolutionary threshold we are now meeting on. And you probably have noticed there's a lot of talking about trauma, on the internet, lots of teachings about that, because it is becoming conscious, coming more and more into the mainstream, as this is what we need to integrate now. Because the biosphere is forcing us to stop. And that's it's tough, but also in a way, it's a good thing as well, even it's not an easy thing. There's no place to run anymore. For the last few minutes of this meeting, of this meditation today, I'd like to suggest, that you could invite an ancestor or some public ancestor or somebody from your family line. Invite them into your space, and see if they have to give you some kind of a pearl, a word, a sentence. For this work, for those who are on the other side, quote unquote, what can they give us on our way. And, you know, just whatever happens, whoever wants to come, and then, you know, coming back to the body, breathing, the impermanence, you know, of the breathing in and breathing out.